Hi, my name is Rachel Monroe. The silence in the house after they took David's body was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. It wasn't just quiet, it was an absence, a physical pressure crushing my ribs. David. My David. The man who made terrible coffee and sang off-key in the shower, who held me after nightmares, and whose laugh felt like coming home. A soldier who survived deployments, only to be taken by a stupid random accident on a rain-slicked highway. Gone. Just gone. The folded flag they gave me felt heavy as lead, a cold, cruel exchange for the warmth of his hand. Planning the funeral was like moving through deep water. Every decision, the casket, the hymns, the damn flowers, felt impossible, surreal. I was drowning, reaching blindly for something, anything, solid to hold on to. My mind kept whispering, call Mom and Dad. They'll know what to do. They'll come. That flicker of desperate hope was the only light in the suffocating dark. He deserved honor, dignity, and I just needed someone, anyone, to stand beside me while the earth swallowed the love of my life. The thought of facing that hole alone was paralyzing. I picked up the phone, my fingers trembling, dialing the familiar number like a lifeline thrown into a stormy sea. Please, just please come. Her voice, usually a comfort, sounded distant when she answered. Hi, sweetheart. I choked on the sob that ripped out of me. Mom, it's tomorrow. The funeral. I can't do this alone. The words were jagged glass in my throat. I pictured them, Mom and Dad, maybe sitting in their sunny kitchen. A safe, normal world light years away from my crumbling one. I waited for the immediate reassurance. Of course we'll be there, darling. Instead, a pause. A soft, uncomfortable sigh. Oh, Rachel. Honey, we're so sorry, but we already promised Ryan. It's his birthday pool party tomorrow. You know how he gets about his birthdays. The world tilted. Ryan. His birthday pool party. Images flashed. Bright inflatables, splashing water, laughter. Juxtaposed against the stark image of a graveside, black suits, silence. Mom, I whispered, the word raw. David's funeral. Another sigh, tinged with impatience now. We know, sweetheart, and it's terrible, truly. But a promise is a promise. Ryan's counting on us. He'd be devastated. The line crackled, with the distance of more than miles. My knuckles were white around the phone. Devastated? The word tasted like ash. I need you. Her voice softened, but it wasn't comfort. It was dismissal. We'll call you after, okay? Be strong, Rachel. You understand, don't you? The click in my ear wasn't just the end of a call. It was the sound of something vital snapping inside me. Understanding? No. I didn't understand at all. The black dress felt like a shroud. The fabric whispered against my skin, a constant reminder of the hollow space beside me where my parents should have stood. The chapel was half empty, faces blurring into a sea of respectful sympathy that didn't touch the icy core of my isolation. The flag lay heavy on my lap, its crisp folds a stark contrast to the crumpled tissue in my fist. The chaplain spoke, words about honor, service, sacrifice. They washed over me. All I could hear was the phantom echo of splashing water, of my brother's laughter, of my mother's voice. Ryan's counting on us. Later, at the graveside, the wind whipped strands of hair across my face. The coffin gleamed under the harsh sun. I stood utterly alone. No family flanking me, just me, the minister, the funeral director, and the gaping maw in the earth waiting for David. As the first clods of dirt hit the polished wood, a sound like a wounded animal escaped me. I clutched the folded flag to my chest, its stiff fabric the only solid thing in a world dissolving into grief and betrayal. Later, scrolling numbly through my phone, I saw it. Mom's Facebook post, a poolside selfie. Her and Dad, grinning, sunglasses on, bright margaritas in hand. Caption: celebrating our Ryan's birthday. Sunshine, family, and fun. Blessed Shasuk family time. The contrast was obscene. While I buried my heart, they toasted with salt-rimmed glasses. The photo wasn't just a post, it was a punch to the gut, a visual scream of where their priorities truly lay. The flag felt heavier than ever. That night, the silence in the empty house wasn't just the absence of David. It was the roaring void left by my family's abandonment. Grief had mutated. It wasn't just tears anymore. It was a cold, hard knot of fury and disbelief tightening in my chest. The condolence casseroles sat untouched. The sympathy cards blurred. All I could see was that Facebook photo, their carefree smiles etched onto my retinas. The funeral director's invoice lay on the kitchen table, a stark column of numbers detailing the cost of burying my husband. My cost. Paid from my savings, from the life insurance that felt like blood money. The finality of it, the sheer aloneness of bearing it, crystallized something. They skipped the goodbye, skipped me, but they couldn't skip the reality of what their absence cost. Not this time. I picked up a pen, my hand steady now, not with calm, but with a terrifying clarity. I didn't write a long letter. What was there to say that their actions hadn't screamed loud enough? Instead, I made a copy of the invoice, every line item, the total circled. On a plain sheet of paper, I wrote just one sentence, the ink dark, and final. Since you skipped the goodbye, the least you can do is help pay for it. I signed it simply. Rachel. No mom, no dad, just Rachel, the woman who buried her husband alone. I slid the note and the invoice copy into an envelope. Sealing it felt like sealing a tomb. There was no satisfaction, only a grim, necessary act. I mailed it before dawn, the click of the mailbox lid echoing in the silent street. Days crawled by. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was thick with waiting, charged with the tension of my act. Had they received it? Had they even cared? The quiet nod at me, a counterpoint to the raw ache for David. Then, the phone rang. Not a call I could answer, but a voicemail blinking insistently. Mom's voice, strained, hesitant. Rachel, honey, we got your letter, and the bill. Sweetheart, we didn't mean to hurt you. It was just Ryan's birthday. You know how special it is to him. The excuse landed like a stone. Didn't mean to hurt you. As if their choice was a minor oversight, a bumped elbow. Dad's voicemail followed later, gruffer, tinged with bewildered frustration. Rachel, this is a bit much, sending us a bill. We thought you'd understand family obligations. Ryan needed us there. Thought you'd understand. The phrase echoed, hollow. Understand that a pool party trumped burying my husband. Understand that my brother's need for celebration outweighed my need for support, while lowering my soulmate into the ground. Their messages weren't apologies. They were justifications wrapped in a thin veneer of concern. They sounded confused, inconvenienced, maybe a little guilty, but utterly incapable of grasping the nuclear devastation their choice had wrought on my world. They weren't acknowledging my pain. They were defending their choice. The chasm between us wasn't just wide now, it was bottomless. Listening to their voices trying to explain the unexplainable only solidified the cold truth settling in my bones. Sitting in the twilight, replaying their voicemails, the final illusion shattered. It wasn't just about the funeral. That was merely the symptom, the glaring, unforgivable evidence. The realization hit with the force of a physical blow. I had never been their priority. Not really. Not deep down. Scraped knees? Sure, they'd bandaged them. First crushes? They'd teased me gently. But when the foundations of my world crumbled, when the unimaginable happened and my need wasn't just emotional but existential, they chose a party. They chose Ryan. They chose normalcy over my cataclysm. The memories shifted, viewed through this brutal new lens. Always Ryan's soccer games taking precedence. His dramas dominating dinner conversations. His needs subtly, unconsciously placed first. My achievements were nice, but his were celebrated louder. I'd excused it, told myself it was just his personality, his needs seeming bigger. But this was beyond excuse. This was abandonment. They hadn't just skipped a funeral. They had skipped me. My raw, unbearable pain. My humanity begging for a hand to hold. My grief was an inconvenience to their sunny day by the pool. The love I thought was unconditional had a limit, and that limit was Ryan's birthday. The pain of losing David was now woven through with the deeper, older pain of realizing the family I thought I had was a beautiful, heartbreaking mirage. The foundation of my entire life felt like sand slipping through my fingers. The house felt haunted, not by David's ghost, but by the ghost of the life I thought I had, the family that wasn't. Every room echoed with memories now tinged with the bitterness of betrayal. Staying was like living in a wound. I couldn't breathe here anymore. The decision wasn't dramatic, it was survival. Quiet, grim necessity. I called a realtor. Packing was an act of archaeology, unearthing fragments of a life brutally interrupted. David's clothes, our wedding photos, the silly mug he loved. Each item a small death, but also a release. The for sale sign going up wasn't just selling a house. It was closing a chapter, written in love, and sealed with abandonment. I didn't tell my parents. What was left to say? Their voicemails still hung in the air, unanswered. The invoice remained unpaid, a silent testament. They didn't need to know my plans. I was already a ghost to them, fading from their peripheral vision the moment they drove to Ryan's party. Loading the last box into the moving truck felt less like leaving and more like escaping. I looked back at the empty shell of our home, the garden where David used to grill, the porch swing where we'd watch the sunset. Tears came then, hot and silent. Not just for David, but for the dream of family support that had died alongside him. I turned the key in the lock for the last time and drove west, chasing distance, chasing anonymity, chasing the faint hope of air that didn't taste like ash and broken promises. The new city was gray drizzle and unfamiliar streets. Anonymity was a balm. A small apartment. Boxes stacked in corners holding a life I hadn't figured out how to rebuild. The grief was still a heavy coat I wore, but the constant suffocating pressure of my family's presence, their absence, really, was finally gone. It left a strange kind of quiet. Then, Mrs. Gable from next door. She wasn't nosy, just observant. Saw me struggling with a grocery bag one rainy afternoon, insisted on helping. Later she brought over soup. Homemade, steaming, smelling of comfort. We didn't talk much at first, but her kindness wasn't intrusive. It was just there, like a steady light in the fog. One afternoon, watching the rain streak down my window, I mentioned David. Briefly, haltingly, that he was gone, that he loved trees. She didn't offer platitudes, just nodded, her eyes kind. A tree, she said softly. That's a fine way to remember. And she meant it. She didn't just suggest it, she made it happen. Found a local nursery, helped me pick out a young maple with leaves that would blaze crimson in the fall. We planted it together in a small patch of communal garden behind our building. The rain turned the earth to mud. We got soaked. My hands, cold and dirty, patted the soil around the slender trunk. It felt real, solid, a quiet act of defiance against the void. Life pushing through. As we stood back, rain plastering our hair, looking at that small, brave tree, Mrs. Gable squeezed my arm. No words needed. The gesture said it all. I see you. This matters. That tiny maple, vulnerable yet reaching skyward, felt more like love. Genuine, uncomplicated love than anything my parents had offered in years. Its simple presence promised growth, seasons changing, a future. It bloomed eventually, not with flowers, but with vibrant green leaves that caught the sun, shining brighter than any hollow, empty word. A year passed, not healed, but scarred, learning to carry the weight. The maple tree thrived. So did I, in small, quiet ways. Work, groceries, occasional tea with Mrs. Gable. The sharp edges of grief had softened into a constant, bearable ache. David's absence was a familiar room in my heart now. The silence from my family was expected, almost comfortable. Then, the ping, a text message, an unknown number yet instantly recognizable. Ryan. Hey, Rach. Long time. Hope you're okay. Getting married. Octa 12th. Would mean a lot if you came. Mom and Dad really miss you. The words shimmered on the screen. A wedding. His wedding. The symmetry was brutal, almost laughable. 1 year after, I buried my husband alone. He invites me to celebrate his new beginning. Mom and Dad really miss you. The old familiar dynamic echoed in that phrase. Ryan, the conduit. Ryan, the reason. Ryan, the priority. The invitation wasn't just an invite. It was a landmine, a guilt trip wrapped in tissue paper. Did they expect me to play the happy sister? To pretend the last year, the last decades, hadn't happened? To sit politely while they toasted Ryan's happiness? Surrounded by family and friends who had presumably managed to attend this milestone? The image was grotesque. Them, beaming, basking in the celebration they deemed worthy. Me, the ghost at the feast, a living reminder of the funeral they skipped. The pain wasn't sharp anger anymore. It was a deep, cold wave of revulsion. Would mean a lot. To whom? To Ryan, who never called? To my parents, who thought a margarita justified missing my husband's burial? Or just to their illusion of a happy, unbroken family? The text wasn't an olive branch. It was a demand to return to the cage I'd escaped. It lay in my hand, heavy with everything unspoken, everything broken. I held the phone, Ryan's text glowing coldly. The apartment was quiet. Outside my window, the maple tree David never saw rustled softly in the breeze, its leaves catching. The afternoon sun, vibrant and alive. I thought of the black dress hanging like a shroud in a closet far away. I thought of standing alone at the edge of that terrible hole. I thought of the folded flag, the invoice, the voicemails full of excuses that never touched the wound. I thought of Mrs. Gable's muddy hands helping me plant hope in the rain. The cold wave of revulsion receded, replaced by something else. Not anger. Not even sadness. Just a profound, bone-deep certainty. A quiet knowing that had taken root alongside the maple tree. I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't rage. I wouldn't explain. They wouldn't understand anyway. They never had. They'd chosen their priorities long ago. Returning to their stage, playing my assigned role in Ryan's happy day. It wasn't just impossible. It was a betrayal of myself, of the woman who survived burying her love alone, of the woman who finally saw the truth and walked away. I owed them nothing. Not my presence, not my forgiveness, not another moment of my fractured peace. I picked up the phone. My fingers didn't tremble. There was no hesitation, no second guessing. Just clarity, hard-won and diamond bright. I typed 3 words. Simple. Final. Not cruel, but fiercely protective. A boundary drawn in unbreakable stone. A promise kept to the woman I was becoming. I hit send before I could doubt the quiet strength flooding me. The message winged its way back. Sorry. I promised myself something better. I put the phone down. No guilt, no regret. Only the profound silence of freedom. I walked to the window, touched the cool glass, looked at my tree, reaching for the sky. It bloomed brighter than any empty love ever could. I breathed in, deep and clear. I had kept my promise.